Mental health, as we know it, is made by and for the West. Mental health professionals should thus question the hegemony of Western mental health practices and ideologies applied to different cultures. In an article written by Dr. Samah Jabr, a Palestinian psychiatrist, she explains how Western mental health focuses on specific values such as positivism, individualism, hedonism, and ahistoricism. These values don't represent or explain many features of the Palestinian experience. For an example, a Western mental health model doesn't acknowledge that the Palestinian resistance to the occupation is a healthy assertion of human dignity, and that international solidarity is in itself therapeutic. The biomedical approach of mental health sidelines sociopolitical influences and focuses primarily on the individual symptoms. The Palestinian experience emphasizes the importance of the bio-psychosocial model, which of course includes the psychological and social elements in viewing mental health, but also adds an important feature, which is power dynamics that are manifested in the lack of justice and the violation of human rights. Global mental health continues to be silent about the colonial relations that shape the social, political, and economic opportunities of people. Palestinian distress doesn't exist in vacuum, apart from the systems of apartheid and Zionism. In this context, the process of reviewing or reframing mental health must integrate the impact of Zionist oppression, displacement, and violence on the individual well-being and, of course, the well-being of the community itself. Now, I recently attended a talk held by this same psychiatrist, Dr. Samah, in which she made important distinctions between the way that we view mental health disorders and symptoms versus the symptoms that are now manifested in Palestinians in a clinical context. I'm going to mention a few of these distinctions. 1. The difference between collective or colonial trauma and PTSD. PTSD, as we know it, is individual. It is the re-experiencing of a specific traumatic event or multiple traumatic events, having nightmares and trying to avoid any situation that could put you through that same trauma. Whereas colonial trauma is collective. It affects masses of people and it disrupts the social fabrics among people. It changes value systems and makes people question the way that they see others and the way that they see the world. 2. Disordered eating versus eating disorders. In eating disorders, the focus is more on the body image and the relationship that we have to food. In disordered eating, Dr. Samah mentioned that she's been experiencing children who are unable to eat regularly due to the scenes from Gaza. For an example, she mentioned a child that has been hoarding food in his closet, and his parents are really concerned for him because he's refusing to eat and he's scared that what happened to Gazan children will happen to him eventually. She mentioned another child that has been experiencing nausea and vomiting every time he sees bread because he's imagining the bread that the Gazans have been having, which is mixed flour and animal food. 3. Depression. Now, we're all familiar with symptoms of depression, but in mothers from Palestine, depression is manifested as feelings of guilt and shame from being pregnant, from bringing more children, vulnerable children, to the world. Finally, for the general public, there has been 2 major reactions to what's happening in the world. One that is reactive, empathy, wanting to be of help, being anxious and disturbed, and another who is numb, feeling detached and disconnected. Both are traumatic responses to what's happening. People from all around the world are grieving the reality of human rights and our helplessness in these tragedies. Now, as a conclusion, I think what this means is a big rethinking and shift in how we view mental health, and thus how we view mental health intervention. The reality forces us to consider other therapeutic practices, one that can repair human connection and that can link individual stories to historical memory. For example, losing rituals, lingering grief, and missing social networks, belief, and trust are collective rather than individualistic, and thus cannot be reconstructed within clinics. These can better be addressed in public spaces, in places where people can recognize and feel that their pain is shared and that it has common roots. The struggle for justice is not just a political goal or aspiration, but also an essential element in individual and collective mental recovery. Concrete interventions as mental health practitioners in the present could look like advocating for an immediate ceasefire and challenging institutions that are silent or complicit in genocide. For the people, more culturally relevant approaches can look like acts of recognition, remembrance, and mass cooperation and task sharing, creating support networks, encouraging storytelling, solidarity, and having safe environments can foster unity and resilience among individuals dealing with adversity. The retrieval of memory is both therapeutic and an act of resistance against the cynical hope expressed by Israelis that the old will die and the young will forget. Hi there. I just realized as I was editing the last portion of this video that I didn't properly end the video. If you're still watching till now, thank you. And I just wanted to mention that most of what I mentioned is inspired by Dr. Samah, and a lot of what I mentioned is actually described in details, in depth, in her articles. So I'm gonna link them below in the description if you're interested to read more, and also other references. I hope that you enjoyed the video and that you're safe and feeling okay. I'll see you next time, I guess. Bye.